If you've made it to this lesson, it's safe to assume that you are now familiar with HTML. Well, congratulations, you've made it to the fun part of the course. This is where we learn about CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's the way that we add color and layout and style and design to our web pages. In other words, HTML is how we describe our content. CSS is how we describe our presentation. That's enough for an introduction. I'm excited to get started because this is one of the most exciting parts of becoming a web developer, your first taste of CSS. So in front of you is an example page. And let's immediately hop over to our text editor and let's learn how to attach a bit of CSS code to a web page. Now we know that the content for a web page lives within the body element. And we know that information about the page is stored in the head element. So currently we have the character set and the overall title of the page. Let's include a new line of code in the head section to attach a bit of CSS. Link, we're going to link to another file with CSS code. We'll give it an attribute of rel, which stands for relationship. The relationship of what we're linking to is a style sheet, hence the name Cascading Style Sheet. And then we include an additional attribute named href, and this is where we point to where the new CSS file will live. In the same folder as where the web page lives, index.html, I'm going to create a new folder to stay organized, and I'm going to name this new folder CSS. Now let's create a new file within this new CSS folder. New file in the CSS folder, and you could name the file anything that you would like. You just want to make sure that it ends with an extension of .css. So I'll name it screen. So we now have a blank CSS file. Now back in index.html, we want to point to that file inside this href attribute. So we want to dig into the CSS folder, then / once we're in the folder, and then we'll type the name of the new CSS file, screen.css. Now we've successfully added a link to an empty style sheet. Let's hop over to that empty style sheet and write our first ever bit of CSS code. So we'll give ourselves a goal. Our goal is that we want this text, example heading, to be orange. So in our new blank file, we will write h1, curly brackets, color, orange. So if I save, refresh in the web browser, voila, we can see the heading is orange. So let's review the syntax that we just used to make that happen. This entire bit of code is known as a CSS rule. The CSS rule begins with a selector. In this case, we used h1 as our selector. And this is simply letting the web browser know which element we want to select to begin styling. So we selected the h1 element, which lives here on the web page, and it says example heading. Then, within the curly brackets, we can specify how we want to style the element that we selected. So, color is a property, and we're giving it a value of orange. When we combine a property with a value, it's known as a declaration. And we can have as many declarations in a CSS rule as we would like. So if we want to center the text, we can say text align, which is the property, and then give it a value of center. So if I save and refresh, you can see that that change has taken place. Let's give ourselves another goal. Let's style the paragraph elements on the page to be green. So that would include this element, and this element. So we'll hop over to our style sheet and we'll create a new rule. The first step is a selector. We want to select the P or paragraph elements. Open up our curly brackets. The property is color, and we'll give it a value of green. So this is our declaration. We include a colon after the property and a semicolon after the value. So I'll save and refresh, and we can see that the paragraphs are now green. That's it for this lesson. You've learned a great deal of new material, so let's review. We learned that a style sheet is a simple text file that anyone can create, and then we simply link to it from our HTML file in the head section. We learned that style sheets are made up of different rules, and a rule is made up of a selector and declarations. And we learned that a declaration is nothing more than a property and a value. In our next lesson, we will learn that there are all sorts of different types of selectors. So there's different ways to target very specific or unique elements on your page. So we'll delve into the wide world of selectors in our next lesson, and that should be a lot of fun. I'll see you in the next lesson.